Welcome to I Am Well podcast. I am your host, Gemma, a nutritionist and mindset coach passionate about all things health and wellness. I'm going to take you on a journey to discovering what health means for you and how to create a life you love living. I'm on a mission to uplift those who feel overwhelmed with what it means to be healthy, reminding you, my listeners, that nutrition is only one aspect of health, and empower you to live your best life on your terms. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to I Am Well podcast. I'm so excited for today's episode. I loved interviewing Shannon so much. If you are someone who is really into learning about energy and especially learning about the pain within our body and how that can relate to past traumas, you are going to love this episode. It was so interesting, and Shannon brings such a warmth. You can just feel her vibe, and she's so loving and has so much information to share. So I'm so excited for you to hear this. But before we get stuck into it, I just wanted to remind everyone that the Balance program is now open, and I currently have an amazing sale on for this month only for the program. So if you've been eyeing off this program, you're really keen, this is the month to do it. My 3-month group program. It's going to be amazing. And as I said, there is a sale on this month only. When we do it again later on in the year, this sale will no longer be running. So please take this opportunity if you are interested in the program. Other than that, I hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome back to I Am Well podcast. Today I'm really excited. I have on a guest with me who has a wealth of knowledge all around Reiki and Womb Hara. And if you're hearing this and you're like, what is Womb Hara? I am the same, and I cannot wait to learn about this. So yeah, I have on Shannon with me today. She's actually a myotherapist. So thank you, Shannon, so much for coming on today and talking with us. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to get into this. This is my first podcast interview, so I'm super excited.
Yeah. First, because I literally know nothing. This is I'm learning myself today. So before we get started, let's just learn a bit about you and how you kind of got started in this business. Because I know you're a myotherapist. So were you a myotherapist first? Like, how long have you had the business for? Like, when did it all start for you?
Yeah, so for me, I was 18, 19, around about that age. So just over 10 years ago now, because I'm 31 now. So
Yeah.
heading into, say 12, 13 years ago, I'd graduated high school. I didn't go down the uni route. I stayed in my retail job that I got from the age of 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was 19 at the time, or maybe just shy. And one of the managers had asked, "Oh, hey, do you want to be like a supervisor or a manager soon? Like you're doing really well, like you're running multiple departments here in the retail store. Like you may as well be one. We may as well give you the upgrade." And I was kind of like, oh, like immediately in my body, I was like, oh, I don't want that. And then I had to like sit and mull and be like, why don't I want that? And then I went home and I was like, oh, it's because like I kind of just stayed in this job and didn't really know where I wanted to go. Like I didn't have the path of uni after school. I just continued on with my job and went full time for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'd applied for psychology and creative journalism, and I got accepted into both, but I just didn't go because it just didn't feel right. I think what I was really doing, but I didn't know it at the time, was like soul searching, which we all do at that age, right? Like,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to sign up to 3 or 4 years of academia and fees and not know if I would like it at the end, which a lot of us feel pressured to do. But I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household where that wasn't really forced upon me. So, I have a really nice, nurturing household that I was brought up in. And yeah, I went home and my mum just goes, well, you know what? If you're really soul searching, why don't you start with something that I've seen your soul light up in, which is quite an interesting story. So when I was really young, I don't know how old, but when I was really young for pocket money, so young enough to get pocket money on school holidays, I would sit on my mum's bottom and she would lay in her bed and she'd get me to massage her back.
Oh,
Yeah, and I loved
how
it. I
nice for
loved doing
your
it. She'd get out all the essential oils. She was such a hippie. She'd get like lavender oil and all this like jojoba oil and all this stuff, and she'd put on relaxing Zen music, early
How
2000s, late 90s.
cool.
And she'd be like, massage my back and I'll give you some pocket money. I used to love it. So she's like, why don't you just start with a Cert 4 in Swedish massage? And so kind of started there and then built my way up from the Cert 4 to the diploma in remedial massage. And then a year after that, I was still hungry for more. So then I went into myotherapy, and I've been a myotherapist in practice for 10 years now. And among that, I then added from there the Bachelor of Health Science in Chiropractics, but then didn't continue on. That's a whole other story with the Masters, which is another 2 years after those 3 years. But I just had a thirst to keep learning. I just love learning about the body. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that it's like it was like deep within you, like you had that calling, the fact that you were doing it on your mum at such an early age. But it's so true, like when we're at that age, like 18, 19, I feel like we all just have this like pressure. You get to like, you finish high school and it's like, okay, what do you want to do now? And you're kind of like, oh my God, I guess go study. Is that what everyone does? Like, yeah. So it's cool that you had that intuition while you were at, working for retail and you listened to it. Because some people have it, but then they don't listen to it and they get stuck in this job that they're just like not loving and it doesn't feel like them. So that's amazing. So cool. And you literally sound like you have a wealth of knowledge. So how long have you done myotherapy for? Did you say it's 10 years?
So 10 years. So 2014 was when I graduated from the advanced diploma in myotherapy. And then it was 2021 when I graduated from, unless it was 2020. I don't know. It was in
Yeah.
the middle of COVID. So it was all a bit of a blur. But I did have a graduation for my health science bachelor, the 3 years in chiropractics. Um,
And
yeah.
when did you start your own business, like for yourself?
So 10 years ago was when I was contracting through other clinics. So how
Okay.
that works is you rent a room out within an established clinic and then you get like cross referral and you work with whatever clinic it is, predominantly chiropractic clinics were the ones I worked in, also physiotherapy clinics.
Yep.
And then it wasn't until 2020, 2021 when I'd actually decided not to continue on in my master's. I was in my fourth year. So I did actually start my master's and then just had this kind of big shift, which is where the energetics then came in and all the spirituality aspects came in and realized that chiropractic was not where I wanted to be
Yeah.
and started soul searching even deeper. So I would say like my first phase of that was when I was 18, 19 and started massage and then got to like 2020, 2021 when I graduated the first aspect of chiropractics
Hmm.
and then realized, oh, okay, next journey because obviously, the universe is steering me in a different direction here.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
And
then
I
actually
love hearing about people's stories when they like had like an enlightenment and want more. So like from you're a myotherapist and everything, and then you realize, wait a second, I love learning about energies, energy types and stuff. Like what's that story? Like tell me about that.
yeah, so this is a bit of a strange one as well, but everyone likes a good story. So I was a year into living with my current partner. We've been together for 5 years, and he was my fourth long-term, like serious relationship guy. And he brings in such a nurturing energy for a male, like, which is, I guess, what I needed because I felt really safe. And what had happened was I'd stopped recalling dreams really since the age of 13. And when I was about a year into living with him, I started to recall my dreams again, not just because I felt safe living with him, but also he was really interested in lucid dreaming and he'd always talk about it. So it actually, like, on a conscious level, piqued my interest. Like, maybe it's not okay to not dream and not recall my dreams. I haven't had that for more than 10 years now. Why is that? So I think consciously and unconsciously, I started to explore that. And so when I finally did start recollecting my dreams, like a year into living with him, I started realizing why that stopped in the first place. And it was because I had this reoccurring dream that I really didn't like. It was really uncomfortable. And when I was at the age of 12 or 13, around about the age where the dream stopped, I told myself, all right, that's it. I don't want to see that dream again. That's awful. Let's not go there again. And so it was like a disassociation, and I kind of stopped recalling dreams from that point. And what the dream was it was actually, let me just pause for a minute and just give everyone a warning. This is childhood trauma kind of territory that I'm about to go into.
Yep.
But what the dream was um, basically me being abused as a child sexually. And it felt like me, and it would be really to a T, like the details of the cobblestone, pathway and everything, and seeing people at this party, and then, being taken into a room, and the rest is history. And I'd relive that dream all the time. And so when I started recollecting dreams again in my first year of living with my partner, it kept coming back. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, but I feel like I'm ready to face this. Like, what is this? I came to realize later down the path that it wasn't just a dream, it was actually a vision. And that was because I was starting to have it come to me throughout the day too. Like I could just be washing the dishes and it would start playing out in my head again, not just in my dreams. And so then I brought it up with my partner, and he said to me, look, I know people who are also in your situation. They say it's like 2 in 3, which is really sad these days, of children who have been abused when they were young and just don't either remember it because they were too little and they've dissociated from the memory, or, they were told not to tell anyone, which is kind of sad. But so what had happened was I then went to my mum. That was what my partner like suggested, was like, why don't you go talk to your family? So I went and talked to my mum, and I was like, oh, hey, I've got a bit of a strange question to ask you, but like I've been having this dream and then it's become a vision, and I just want to know, did this happen to me when I was a kid? And then my mum kind of goes, oh, well, actually, no. And I was like, okay, how can you guarantee that? She's like, well, describe the dream again. And so I did. And then she said, I know for a fact that that wasn't you, because every single thing you're describing down to a T was not you. It was someone else in our family. And what you're seeing is a vision. And it made sense because when I looked back at the details, it seemed like it was back in another decade, not from the 90s. Like the details, the clothes they were wearing, the type of Tupperware containers, like all down to that. It didn't make sense for the 90s. It seems like an older age. And so from there, I then started to explore ancestral trauma, because this is what it was. It was a vision that my mum had birthed into me from her lineage. She's from Mauritius, my mum. So she has a whole
But
lineage.
my husband's side of the family is too.
Oh, cool. I love when I meet fellow Mauritians. Awesome.
Yeah, not me, but my husband's side.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
You don't get that a lot here in Australia, actually.
No.
Yeah. So I started to explore that. I then went to my grandmother and asked, oh, hey, like, what's your, like, so this was my mum's mum. What's the history here? Like, how old were you married? Blah, blah, blah. And she went on to tell me about, so this is my grandmother. Her mum was married off to a French aristocrat when she was 12 years old. So
Yeah.
that's like my great grandmother. It's actually not that far
Yeah.
away. And can you imagine being 12 and like having your wedding night and not knowing what was about to happen with like a
Yeah.
40-year-old man? Like,
That's
so you can imagine the trauma that comes from
Oh my God.
childhood
So
and
was that
embodied.
like the image that you were having of?
That's an example of one of them. That wasn't the image,
Right.
but because I started to explore, I started to uncover more. But we'll take that example for example.
Hmm.
And if that grandmother like had that experience at that age at 12 and so on, and then had children and then didn't resolve the trauma, she's then birthing that trauma into the next child. And then if that child is unconscious and unaware of it and then doesn't deal with that trauma, they then birth it into their child. So it had been passed down energetically, and we'll get into the energetics later down the track. But yeah, I realized this, and then I started to tap into somatic embodiment work, Reiki healing, and going into this kind of therapy of the unconsciousness or the metaphysics, in other words, the universal spiritual realm.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. I've like got goosebumps because this is just so crazy. Because I was literally just listening to a podcast this morning that was talking about the exact same thing you're saying right now. And I have never heard this before in my life. So, like, what are the chances of me now hearing it twice? And I didn't know, like, when you were coming on that you were going to talk about it either. So it's just like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, this is just insane that I've heard this twice in one day now. Um, this is just crazy. It's really, and it's what I was hearing too, because they were talking about how, like, the trauma can affect your gut, so your gut microbes as well, because, like, obviously I talk a lot on nutrition. So they were saying the same thing, that the trauma, like back on what was happening with your great grandma, can affect her gut, but can also affect the baby's gut, and then further along generations down the line. And then so you're having these issues like irritable bowel syndrome and stuff like that. But it's all kind of because of the stress that your ancestors had. Like, and I was just like mind blown. And it's so crazy that now you're talking about it here, the exact same thing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is, yeah. Anyway, that was just crazy.
You're so right, though. Like, it's not just the physical genetic things that we get passed down, it's also the energetics. It's just, I guess it's a bit of a controversial topic because not everybody, like, everybody has different philosophies, beliefs, of their own. So,
Yeah.
like, when I speak of things like collective universal energy and spirituality and the energetic trauma that can be passed down, like, that those words might not mean anything to certain people. And then for others, it might pique their interest and they can go down a rabbit hole and explore. And for others, they might be totally aligned with it. So, like, it is a bit of a controversial topic because some people might go, well, hang on, spirits and souls don't exist. Or some
Mm-hmm.
people might go, oh, well, I believe in a different higher power. It's
Mm-hmm.
totally fine. But it's just from personal experience, and there are many others who have had very similar personal experiences. So it's just really nice to be able to share, I guess, in the similar communities. And that's what we're all here for, is to join similar communities and share the
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
And what I love, because I love the science behind it too, though, and what we do know for sure is that energy is real. And I guess this is kind of going to go into what I want to talk about with you next is like Reiki, because I've definitely heard of Reiki, and but I just don't know enough about it. And I would love to know what it entails, like how it works. It does focus on energy, is that right?
Yeah. So what Reiki is like, its definition is universal or collective energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could break that down and talk about what energy is. So for the listeners who don't really understand the term, when we're talking about it in a metaphysical or spiritual sense, is we're looking at vibration, right? So like if we try and what's the word? Like conceptualize it into logic, because that's what our brain likes to do, is like, the sun has UV rays. That's a vibration.
Mm-hmm.
um, when we go in and have an X-ray that has rays, they have vibration. Plants respond via vibration. So plants respond to sound. They've actually scientifically proven it, that they actually like music and sound. Um, so everything has a vibration. And when we talk about energy and Reiki being universal energy, we're talking about the collective. So the energy that the sun emits and gives out versus the air we breathe, that's an energy we take in, versus our biological makeup, which is an energy that makes us who we are. So there's the energetic exchange. And so with Reiki, what that energy is it's a kind of neutral, I guess you could say, or a balancing energy that interacts with the world around us and then us. So when we're laying on a table about to receive Reiki therapy, I like to say Reiki therapy rather than Reiki healing.
Yeah.
Um, we are already kind of consenting because we're laying on the table, like we're there to give it a go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So consciously we're consenting to receiving Reiki, but then we also have our unconsciousness and our soul, our emotional body, our mental body there. And they are main aspects of us that are going to be receiving the benefits of Reiki. So even though as the therapist, I will be putting my hands on their feet, for example, and then work my way around the body physically, what they're experiencing is an exchange of universal energy into their mental, energetic, and emotional bodies. And they can either receive that energy or they can give off energy, or they can like feel harmony with the collective energy. So often what happens with Reiki is it's the best way to describe it is it's like a balancing energy. That's probably the best way to describe it because it comes into the session. I don't control it. I am the talisman as the Reiki therapist. It channels through me
Okay.
and it interacts with the person on the table. And what it does as a neutral balancing energy is it works through what needs to be unblocked, what needs to flow, what needs to slow down. And so this is where that exchange of energy comes in. So like if you have an area in the body, and I'll go into what the body means in an energetic sense as well. But if we have an area in the body that is blocked or stagnant, it will clear that. Often Reiki will use it in the terms of the chakras too.
Yeah.
So there are different types of Reiki. The one I learned is Usui Reiki, which is the traditional Japanese type. And often we'll see them, those blocks of energy that are like stagnant, clear through the chakras.
Right.
Um, and so when we clear those chakras, we then have flowing energy. So essentially, we're creating a flowing, balanced energy in someone. Yeah.
Um, and what have you noticed when you've had clients come in with you? What have they noticed?
Yeah. So this is where I'll talk about the four bodies because we have the physical body,
Yeah.
which is our biological body, the thing we can touch and see. And that's classed as, yeah, well, sorry, it is classed as the physical body. And then we have the three metaphysical bodies, which are the ones we can't physically see or touch, which is our emotional body. So where our feelings and intuition comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our mental body, which is where our thoughts, our memories, our, um, I guess, instincts come from. Actually, I'm going to take that back because then the next body is energetic, and that's where our instincts and intuition come from.
Yeah.
That's our soul body. Yeah. So we've got four bodies. And with Reiki, when we're experiencing a session of Reiki, it interacts predominantly with the three metaphysical bodies. So the energetic, the emotional, the mental. And because of that, when they're receiving that and it's working through and clearing any stagnant blocks and creating balance, what people often will experience during and after is things like improved sleep, mental clarity or mental resilience or resilience to stress.
Mm-hmm.
So Reiki also is said to be loving energy. And so it creates like a safety and nurturing kind of energy, like a sense of that. And so where there's safety and nurturing created in a session, people do feel safe enough to then go deep on an unconscious level and find mental clarity, for example, or, release stress and blocks from the body. And so with that comes stress resilience, because we're actually often when there's blocks, they have to come up and surface before they shift through. So we are then going from an unconscious awareness, like not aware of a block, to becoming aware. It's there and it's uncomfortable and I can see it and I don't like it, and then to shifting through. And so that's where the mental resilience comes in. And then we can also have like the physical somatic reactions to those blocks shifting. So you can have things like people crying to release those blocks. You can have people shaking or like panting or
Yeah.
feeling really tired and almost like that sleep paralysis feeling. But afterwards, the benefits comes in because you're feeling a lot more free, a lot more flowing. So you have like increased awareness, increased intuition, calm and peace. And that's where the improved sleep comes in and the mental clarity. So yeah,
So
that's like,
technically, because I talk a lot about stress, because stress, like it's one of the number one causes for illness, um, and hormone imbalances for women. And I think we just don't realize and talk enough about it because I feel like it's definitely come to the surface. Like we're definitely talking more about stress. but we're forgetting that we can be stressed just by sitting there scrolling on our phones and just watching TV or something like that. Those dopamine hits are creating that stress. So I just wanted to like ask, so have you seen like if someone was is always highly stressed and they're coming in for Reiki, can that also then help the hormonal imbalances then, like technically, because you're affecting the stress, the cortisol, you're balancing that, and then hopefully balancing those hormones? And if so, how many times do they kind of have to do it to see results?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the thing with Reiki. It addresses the metaphysical bodies, as I said,
Mhm.
but in doing that, all four bodies interact with one another. So
Right.
in interacting with the mental, energetic, and emotional bodies, when we clear through that, it then in turn clears the physical body, right?
Right. Hmm.
And so I don't know if you've heard of the term, but like where my intentions go, my energy flows, right?
Hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So what that's addressing when we hear that term is like basically the power of the mind, right? So if my mental like body has shifted, my energetic body has shifted, then my physical body will shift, my physical world will shift. And so that's where like the chemical makeup in our body shifts, right? So that's the power of the mind. We address things like anxiety and depression um, by scientifically terming it, a lack of hormone, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like a lack of serotonin or a lack an ADHD is a lack of dopamine, right? For example. So when we're shifting the mind, we're also shifting our secretory glands in our body that control the endocrine system. And so yeah, indirectly, to answer your question, long way
Yeah.
around to get to it. Yes, it does, but indirectly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's really cool. And I love that you said like anxiety and depression, lack of hormones, because sometimes, it can, we definitely talk about it more, but I still feel like you're just like diagnosed with anxiety and depression. We don't know what's wrong. It's just you're stressed or something. You need to calm down.
Mhm.
But it is a lack of, yeah, those hormones that you were talking about. Um, that's really interesting.
Oh, there's more too with the hormones in Womb Hara therapy as well.
I was literally just about to say, like, Gabby, who we have mutual friends with, she mentioned it. I think she's gonna have it done. I was like, what is Womb Hara? I need to know what this is. And then I did a little bit of research before I jumped on this podcast with you, but that just like blew my mind more. I was like, there is so much. So please just start from the top because I literally have no idea.
Yeah, so this was like the next level for me. So like in 2020 when I decided not to like continue on with chiropractics, I first started with somatic embodiment, so how to like kind of connect really what it was in hindsight, connect my myotherapy skills, so like everything about the physiological body to metaphysical bodies.
Hmm.
So somatic embodiment was the first step. And then I went into Reiki and then I went in from there to Womb Hara. And Womb Hara was just like that next step deeper, going even deeper into the energetics um, as to how that interacts with the hormones. I'll get into that. So I'll break down the word first. So
Yeah.
Womb Hara, because it's a very unknown term. It's not,
Yeah.
it's a very I don't want to say new, but it is quite new in terms of like it's a trending word that's just starting to come out now. But it
Mhm.
has been around for at least 5, 10 years, as far as I know, based
Right.
on the facilitator and the trainer I went through. But womb meaning uterus, reproductive area, and then hara in Chinese is stomach.
Mhm.
So that's our abdomen. So we're actually addressing the digestive system as well as the reproductive system on a physiological level. But this is where it gets deeper than the Reiki in the sense that it's addressing physical as well as the metaphysical bodies, because we're addressing the reproductive organs and the reproductive system by physically working through there with like massage techniques and then doing the same with the digestive system. But on an energetic level, what we're working with, if we're talking, I'll break it down simply to understand, we're talking about masculine and feminine, and energetically, the where the womb is where the uterus is and the reproductive organs, is our sacral chakra, which is one of the feminine chakras. It's the sacral chakra is the most feminine chakra in our system. And then we have the solar plexus, which is just below our diaphragm, and that's all about digestive system. And that's the masculine, the most masculine chakra. And
Okay.
so we're actually working with a masculine and feminine balance within, as well as our reproductive and digestive organs. And it's like this synergy. It's like a yin and yang treatment, essentially. It's like all encompassing. It's amazing.
I've heard of the solar plexus, and I've heard of the sacral chakra, but
Chakra,
I
yeah.
actually didn't know that they were the feminine and the masculine energy. I didn't know that's what they were, the difference.
Yeah. There's a whole heap of actually, do you know what? I'm going to talk about this first. So there's an
Yeah.
amazing book called The Secret. Anyone listening who's interested in like connecting the physical with the metaphysical and like the meanings behind what manifests in our physical body, what could be the metaphysical meanings, right? So you need to get this book if you're interested in that. The Secret Language of Your Body
Yeah, I'm
by
gonna get.
Ina Siegel. It's a yellow book. It's amazing. It's like, and the reason it's amazing, because I'm such an efficient person, like I'm just like, yep, let's get this done.
Yeah.
That book is like an index. You can just look up whatever area of your body, whether it's like right foot or a condition, for example, like asthma, and it'll give you the page to where it's at in that book. You go to that page and then it gives you the metaphysical meanings behind it. So thought processes, beliefs, emotions that could be sitting in that area that are connected to that condition or that area of the body.
Oh my gosh, that's
And
so
then it can also go into the colors of the chakras for that area of the body.
that's
Yeah.
so cool. I want this book because like
Yeah.
I've talked about it a little bit on my social media and on my podcast, but I've struggled with endometriosis for a bit. Since I can remember really, but I was only just been officially diagnosed with it. And as I was reading up on Womb Hara, it literally said on there, can help with pelvic pain, PMS symptoms, endo. And I was like, what is this? So
Mhm.
yeah, I want this book so I can read that too.
Yeah. Because like we could go on to like how it addresses both the physical body and the energetics behind it. But also what I probably haven't mentioned yet is like, we have the physical reason behind why things manifest in the body, like in the physical body, but then also like, what have I been stirring in my mind or in my heart, like my emotions and my thoughts?
Yeah.
What have I been passed down in ancestral lineage that's affected my soul? So that's the energetic body, all those metaphysical things. How are they stagnant in the body, creating blocks in the body, which then fester and create dis-ease in the body? So that's where you can link it all together with how the body represent or presents itself at the time. So like you've mentioned you've been struggling with endo,
Mhm.
right? If you go to that book and you look up endo and it'll give you a myriad or plethora of things that it could be related to. It's like this is typically how it goes down. You will find one keyword out of like the paragraph that really resonates with you.
Mhm.
Stick with that. And if there's like a little exercise underneath, sometimes it has a little exercise you can go through, run with that keyword and exercise, and you'll literally feel the shift straight away.
Okay, that's so cool. I'm
Yeah.
gonna.
So like I'm not trying to belittle physical ailments and
No,
like
no,
actual
but
like
I totally believe you because I'm literally reading a book on my own about the gut microbiome and how there really is it's been proven, and it actually is in research papers, there is a gut and brain link, like the gut
yeah,
brain.
the enteric nervous system. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's what you're saying, it makes sense. Like I know to some it can be a bit woo-woo, but it's only because this stuff isn't talked about enough. Like, and definitely by doctors and stuff, it's easier to just they don't have enough time to go through all the other, aspects of what it could be. So they're just like diagnose and treat, and just will quickly prescribe something.
Mhm.
But this stuff I'm so into because it's looking at such a bigger picture, like
Yeah.
such a broader picture.
And that book, like the other good thing about that book, drawing on what you have just said, it's written by Ina Siegel, but also one of her relatives co-wrote that book, and she's an MD, like a medical doctor.
There you go. See?
So like even now, MDs, there are people out there in the medical industry who are starting to acknowledge the fact that the energetics does interact with the physical body. And that's why I always bring up the four bodies, because they're all interacting.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really amazing to see Western medicine starting to accept that and acknowledge that and work with it.
Yeah.
It's so exciting to see this kind of like new era that we're going through. Yeah.
It is. It's really cool. It's really cool to see that we're going down different holistic paths. It's not just that diagnose and treat anymore.
Yeah.
So with Womb Hara though, how long does an appointment go for? And what actually would happen in the appointment if you wanted to book one?
So in clinic, when I book either Reiki or Womb Hara, because I work with three different therapies, three different modalities.
Mhm.
There's the myotherapy, which I've been doing for 10 years, and then there's Womb Hara and Reiki. When I schedule a Reiki or a Womb Hara session, they have a certain like time frame that they're booked in for, but I always ensure that there's at least 15 minutes, if not 30 minutes afterwards,
Yeah.
with a break before my next patient. Because the thing with the energetic bodies, the metaphysical bodies, I should say, sorry, um, is it has a mind of its own. With Reiki and Womb Hara, it has a mind of its own, and it's meeting the individual where they're at. It's not like a cut copy textbook thing like myotherapy where we're just addressing the physical body and it's a lot more predictable.
Yeah.
Everybody who steps on the table for Reiki therapy or Womb Hara therapy has their own journey that they've come through. And it's unpredictable in the sense that they often walk through without knowing what they're going to see because they're not aware of it yet. It's like an unconsciousness. The metaphysical aspects, like what's happening deep down in our emotions or what happened, in a past life, if we believe in that, where has our spirit journeyed to before this? What was our ancestral lineage that's been passed on? Like, we don't know what's going to come up in the session. So, Womb Hara can be around 2 hours, Reiki can be around an hour, but sometimes it goes longer, sometimes it goes shorter. Sometimes it's really intense and fast, and I end up charging them less because it goes less than an hour. For
Right.
example, with Reiki, sometimes it goes overtime, or sometimes the debrief, which is where we talk about it after the session, what had come up. Sometimes that goes for a longer time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Wow.
Womb Hara is like 2 to 2.5 hours usually. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So every session, so this must be like such a cool job because every session is going to be different for you.
Yeah.
You never know what you're
Yes.
going to get. That's like so cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love it.
yeah. How long have you been doing Womb Hara for? Did you say?
Since November, not long. But what was interesting is I went to the training not even knowing, and this happened with Reiki too. I signed up to Reiki training, same thing. I signed up to Womb Hara end of last year and had no idea what I was expecting, but I just knew intuitively I wanted to learn it.
You
Um,
have such a strong intuition within you. Do you know like anything about that? Have you like researched into that? Because I feel like I was just talking to someone about, I had someone on about human design. And so she was telling, like apparently I think more with my guts or more of my
mm,
sacral. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, have you like researched because you're like sound like you're so intuitive?
So I love online quizzes and I haven't looked into human design too much. I've done a bit more in astrology, like
Yeah.
looking into astrology. But when I did do an online quiz for human design, it said I was a projector and I move more with my gut and my solar plexus, which is
Yeah.
like our gut instinct, right?
I literally read a little bit about that because I think my mum's a projector. They're more of the rarer ones and they're more
Mm.
intuitive thinkers, aren't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, they like to sit back and observe.
There you
Yeah.
go. That's crazy. It's so true. You're so like I can just feel it. I'm like, oh my God, you're so intuitive. Like you just know. You must have like have you just like experienced that your whole life? Like just things happening, you know?
Yeah, I always felt really different as a kid, which sounds weird. It sounds a bit like Harry Potter vibes, right? Like I knew I
Yeah.
was different. But like I honestly like went through phases where I'm like, am I weird or is everyone else weird?
Am I a witch or like that's so
But
cool.
even my mum, like I feel like I have to actually pay respects to my mum because if I didn't have her as my mom, I wouldn't have been as open to that aspect of myself from such a young age. I wouldn't have been as accepting. I would have suppressed it like a lot of us probably do. Like I'm sure when we were little kids, even if we don't remember it because we're too little, had seen something in the corner of our eye and gone, oh, and thought it was another person and then just like got too spooked and then suppressed it. But with my mum, she was always so open about that. And because it's something she's interested in. Like to this day, I'll go to her house and she has this thing that she calls a what does she call it? A she cave instead of like a man cave.
Oh,
And you go
love
into it. Yeah. Well, you go into it and there's just like singing bowls, crystals, macrame on the wall because she makes macrames and she's got like this hanging wall where she creates all her macrame, yoga mats. Like
your mum
it's
sounds so
amazing.
cool.
And she and I go in there and like I know my grandmother and my dad get jealous, but like she and I go in there for like an hour or two and just go missing. We just go lost in space.
That is so cool. Is
I
it
wouldn't
just
have
you, or do you have siblings?
I have my brother, he's not really into that, but as a kid he definitely had experiences too. Like my mum said, like because my granddad, I was 2 and my brother would have been 3.5, 4 when my granddad died. So this is my mum's dad.
Yeah.
And he would talk. My mum said this. I didn't experience it. I was only 2. But he would talk down the hall late at night to my granddad.
Wow.
And
I
my
love
mum
these
would wake
stories.
up and be like to my brother, Kurt, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm just talking to grandpa. And
That
my mom's like, no way. And then the toilet lid would slam down. And then she's like, oh my God, that has to be grandpa. Because he was like so OCD about the toilet lid being down.
oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah. So
Oh my,
like so crazy. Yeah.
what does your mum do for work? Does she work or does
She
she
she was in she's retired now. She's loving life, early retirement.
love that?
But she was just in building industry. So she was a like office worker. She worked as a office manager in a building industry. Yeah, in a building company. Yeah.
Wow.
But since leaving that job, she has just blossomed into her Marga phase because like you've got your maiden phase, your mother phase, then you've got your Marga phase, and then your crone phase, which is like your later years into
I
death.
actually haven't
Yeah.
heard of that. Is that
Yeah.
to do with
So
energy?
they're like, yes, it's like a energetic philosophy, I guess you could say, like a spiritual philosophy. You've got different phases as a woman. So you go from pubescent to maiden when you have your first menarche, when you have your first bleed. You are now a maiden. So a lady expecting. You haven't become a
Yeah.
mother yet, right? And
Huh?
then when you conceive, you then go through your mother phase. And then once the kids leave the nest and you're able to fully embody who you are. So like my brother and I left the nest, 5, 7 years ago, but my mum was still in a way in her mother phase because she was still working 24/7. So like the thing with the phases is they're not so literal. So like if I'm in a mother phase right now, it's because I'm creating my career. I'm
Yeah.
not creating life. I'm not nurturing like a baby, but my work's my baby right now. So that's my mother
Okay.
phase right now. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Not literally
And
you're a mother. It's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And then she's gone into her Marga phase, which is like the phase after you're a mother, coming back to yourself and fully, it's like the witchy phase. You fully embody
hmm
like who you are. You come
Yeah.
back to yourself, but with wisdom. And
Yeah.
then your crone phase is like the all seeing eye, the wisdom I'm ready to pass on kind of thing and
hmm
pass my wisdom on. Yeah. So it's really interesting. She's going through her Marga phase and she's just shining. She's amazing
It's
because
so
she doesn't have that job taking up space anymore. Yeah.
it's so true, like what you're saying though, because I'm doing a lot of education around perimenopause and menopause and talking about those phases of life. And I think it's really looked at as like as you get older, oh, you've hit menopause, it's all downhill from there. But technically, with all the science that's coming out around it, there's something called I think it's called the grandma effect. If you Google the grandma effect, you literally see it talks all about how as we get older, we actually use parts of our brain differently than we ever have before. And it's been proven by neuroscientists. They've shown how like the brain prunes, and you end up like having more of this wisdom. And your role now is to then help your children and their children down the line, because that's like what we did, back in hunter-gatherer days. And the reason for this is because the grandmas were then always looked at as the ones that would go in and gather up the food now. They'd be there to lead the group now. They'd be there. So it actually makes sense what you're saying. And I love that, because it just reiterates, it's like, as we get older as women, we actually become more powerful.
Hmm.
Not less like, oh, you hit menopause, it's all downhill.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like I ran into this guy in the complex who's gay, and he said, "Oh, I recently broke up with my partner." And he looks so vibrant and young and like handsome. And the next words that came out of his mouth shocked me. He's like, "Oh, I'm 32 and single, which means 130 in the gay world. My dating career is over." I was like,
What?
"Oh." I was like, "Bless, no."
No.
That can't be it. Like you can't just accept that. That's not on. Like I'd only just met him and I could see he was just a ray of just beaming youth and light.
Yeah,
And I was like, that can't be true. Like look into
that's
that,
not
dude.
true. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
And what you believe at the end of the day. So do not believe
exactly.
whoever's telling you that. No, do
Yeah.
not believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has been so interesting. Like, this has literally been one of my favorite episodes. I could talk to you for hours. I just literally want to hear. So, what are you doing at the moment with the business? Because I feel like you're about to go away, aren't you? Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not sure if I told you or if Gabby told you. Maybe I
Gabby's
did.
told me. So she said that you're going away, because I was like, oh my God, I need to book in with her. And she's like, no, well, she's about to leave soon. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So what's the plan?
So it's going to be so interesting because I don't really know anyone else who does myotherapy and Reiki therapy and Womb Hara therapy. So it's quite a unique niche and collective wisdom to bring together into one. But because my partner and I are going on a new adventure overseas, we're going abroad to Europe in July.
Amazing.
I'm now using his wisdom, calling upon his wisdom as a web developer
Yeah.
to transition all my clinical practice from the last like 10 years. Well, actually, it's been closer to 12,
Yeah.
into an online platform.
That's so
But I'm actually, it wasn't something I was expecting to be uh, in my favor. Like I kind of resisted it at first, but now I'm starting to see that it's actually working out perfectly as it should. And this is how the universe works because I started to get to a point probably 2 years ago, year and a half ago, where I was seeing clients come in saying things like, and they'd always said it the last 10 years, but saying things as soon as they come in, like, oh, thank God I've got my appointment with you today. I've been waiting the last 4 weeks since my last appointment. Like, I can't wait. You need to fix me.
Mm.
And it's not that I'd never heard that before in the last 10 years, but it's that it started to affect me. And then I had to search into why. And then I've kind of gone, hang on, you know why it affects me? It's because I feel like I've created a dependency here. And that's not what I want. I want my patient base, my client base to feel empowered to take charge of their body. And that's always been my mission is to empower people to realize that they are powerful themselves and that they have this innate ability physically and metaphysically to heal themselves. I'm just there to create the stimulus that they need to get there to guide them.
Mhm.
And so going online is actually the perfect like journey into doing that because it's taking me away from the clinic space, the clinic room where I'm physically touching them,
Yeah.
um, into more of a, I guess, educator.
Mhm.
So those who come to me online will be called because they want to take action themselves, right?
Mhm.
Because they're ready to. And so the offerings that I have coming up when I transition online are going to be one-on-one sessions online. But my biggest one that I'm really looking forward to is called Feminine Harmony. It's a program that I'm bringing out. It goes for 6 months. And it's going to envelope all three sectors. So myotherapy, Reiki, somatic embodiment, and the Womb Hara. So actually four.
Yeah.
um, and it's all going to be about female cycles, but not just physically. It's going to go into the spiritual and philosophical aspects as well.
Amazing.
So, for example, when we are on our bleed, we're going to talk about the cycle of winter.
Hmm.
When we're pre-ovulation and follicular, we're going to talk about spring season
Yeah.
and so forth, ovulation, summer, And then our pre-bleed, our luteal phase is autumn, our shedding. And then everything else that comes into that energetically, spiritually, like the moon phases through those phases, as well as the elements. So there's like air element in our pre-ovulation, and then there's in autumn, it's like our earth element. So it's going to be connecting people to their bodies, but also to the universal collective energy as well. So I'm really excited for that. It's
That's
going to basically rewild women.
yeah.
Like,
And
yeah.
yeah, I love what you're saying, that it's like giving the power back to your clients, like, because that's something that I've been fiddling around with too in my own mind. When a client comes to you and you've helped them and they're like, oh my God, you fixed me. You kind of like, no, 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 I'm not the one that fixed you. Like, you're the one that did it. I just gave you tools. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it gives someone their power back. So it's everything like I stand for too. Like, it makes so much sense. And this online space that you're doing sounds incredible. I can't wait to see it be announced. It's going to be so cool. So that happens from July, did you say?
Yeah, so July we're gonna have like kind of a month off, and we're going to Croatia, and we're gonna sail away.
Oh, I've so badly
Um,
go there. I've never been.
yeah, well, you know what? Me either. We're doing a year abroad in Europe, and we're going. The first place we're going to, I've never been before, but we'll see where
Yeah.
it takes us. I'm
God,
all hands off deck. We'll see what happens. But
it'd be an adventure.
after that, I will launch the program. And there'll be a lot more clarity on how it's going to look. But yeah, I'm still actually making the program right now, and
Perfect.
it's coming together so beautifully. But yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Well, that sounds
yeah.
amazing. If anyone is listening and they're like, you know, like me, just in awe, and you can just feel Shannon's energy too, because I can literally just feel it through this Zoom. Then follow Shannon on Instagram. I'll put all her links in the show notes below. You can see her journey. She's about to go online now, so that's an amazing opportunity for all my listeners who are around the whole world. You literally have this opportunity to get in touch with her and just feel her amazing energy and warmth. Like, you just bring such a vibe.
Thank you.
It's been
Thank you
so,
for holding space for me today. It's been so lovely.
it's been so good having you on and getting to know you. And I am literally like, okay, I need to learn more still. So I will definitely be getting in touch with you after this. So thank
Yes.
you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, cool. I'll leave it there and I'll talk with you all in the next episode. Bye, everyone.